We started off in '08 and we started off with a single site. And at that point, I won the CrossFit Games. I had some good momentum behind me. I had just graduated from college. We opened a location. Then we opened 2. Then we opened 3. At that point, we had 4 locations. We rebranded NorCal CrossFit at the time to be more indicative of multiple locations. So instead of like CrossFit Santa Clara, CrossFit Mountain View, CrossFit this, we're like, hey, let's have one brand. So we did that. And then we signed a big corporate wellness deal. At the time, we were really pursuing corporate wellness. We had these brick and mortar locations. I was competing professionally. We ended up signing a deal. We ended up servicing Twitter. We serviced GoPro. We serviced a variety of different companies, but the largest one, we still service Lucasfilms, but the largest customer we had was Western Digital. And this is like 2011, 2012 or so. We expanded globally with Western Digital. And for the next 10 years, we were, servicing like 15 locations with them. So we had Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, 3 in Malaysia. We had, Japan, wherever they had locations, not wherever, but many locations where they had, the president saw a lot of value in CrossFit and the ability to create connection. And so we ended up expanding globally with them. And so at the time, we were balancing the business of, multiple brick and mortars, corporate wellness, and then obviously we started expanding to digital for the gym owners, which is a whole nother revenue stream. Mm-hmm. And obviously still competing professionally and trying to balance these different things became tough. What I found was that I'd be on the assault bike doing intervals at night, trying to stay in shape. And I'd be on conference calls with Asia because, they work different hours, right? So it'd be like, I don't know, 7 p.m. our time, which would be like a good time for them. And I'd be in the garage just hitting the salt bikes and I would just be hitting the mute button, right? And then when they asked me a question, I'd unmute it. And it just wasn't the right way to live life, one foot in, one foot out, just distracted. I was just, when I was training, I wasn't fully focused. And for me to really reach my potential in the different areas that I wanted to with, business, family, fitness, because I had my daughter in 2011 and then my son in 2014. So I was still competing professionally and having the locations. I told myself I needed to kind of treat each facet of my life more like an AMRAP when you're doing a workout. So if you look at like the way that we're having this conversation right now, I'm present, I'm focused, I'm not distracted, I'm not on my phone, I'm not talking to anybody. I just really want to get the most out of this conversation. I want to give you my best and hope that you give me your best and we could have a great conversation. And that's what I think about when I think about the AMRAP mentality. I ended up writing a book on it called As Many Reps as Possible. And the goal is to identify what you're focusing on. So right now I'm focused on you. After we're done with this, I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to focus on something else. I'm no longer going to think about you guys, which I like you guys. You guys are awesome. I'm just going to move on. I'm going to move on to my next focus. Right. And so before this, I was at jiu-jitsu. I was present. I was focused. Now I'm here. I'm present. I'm focused. Then I'm going to do something else. I'm present, focused. The idea is identify what your focus is, work super hard at it, switch gears throughout the day. And then every now and then when life throws you like a big change, whether it's getting married, having kids, whatever, right? You open a new business, whatever, you might need to reevaluate what those focuses are. But I think by embracing this AMRAP mentality of if someone asked you to do max burpees in 5 minutes, you wouldn't do anything but that. If you can embrace that in different areas of your life, I think you're going to be more productive. And that's what we started instilling many years ago. And it's paid dividends since.
Yeah, I mean, how applicable that is to society today. And it sounds like you even went through that. It's not just, this wasn't something you just had the aha moment from zero experience. It's like you were in it where you're riding the assault bike on a conference call. And it's like, I mean, and I'll just speak for myself. I know, Barry, you could probably speak to it too, because we've talked about it on the podcast. Like how many times now me, I have a month old and then also a 1.5-year-old. And you're on you're on your phone while you're playing with them and just catching myself in those moments saying like, hey, what are you doing? Like, go put your phone away and focus on your kids. And of course, I see myself getting better and better at it, but it's like, it's wild, man. The amount of distractions now, it's like you can go through a whole day and never have a single 30-minute block where you stay focused the whole time. And that like, as I reflect on it, it's something I've been very conscious of lately. It's like, that's sad. Like, and it's almost like we've given ourselves ADHD throughout our day because we're so distracted by so many things going on that as you said, you don't get the full juice from anything you're doing because you're half in, half out throughout your day.
Yeah. And like what we're talking about is not easy and I'm not perfect at it at all. I mean, but the idea is to at least be aware, to your point, right? You're aware of that. And For me, where it really started to play a role, obviously with the family, it's just thinking about the CrossFit Games and just being so engulfed, of wanting to win, just being so focused that you got to learn to compartmentalize some of that stuff. Otherwise, it just starts to detract from other relationships you have. And I'm very grateful that for years I tried to embody that mindset and still do today, because, when Ava got sick, it allowed me to have, a strong financial hedge because we worked hard, a strong fitness hedge, and then strong relationships because we had actually invested in those relationships. They don't just happen. Like you gotta cultivate it. And we were able to kind of pivot out from the business as well and basically turn it over to our team because of embodying this mindset, I think.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And this is something we've talked about on the podcast before, is there absolutely is risk to collateral damage in your life if you're, head down, tunnel vision, pursuing something because you're so competitive and you want to win and be successful. If you're not mindful to the other aspects of your life that it could affect, 6 years could go by and you could find yourself divorced like me. We joke about it now, but our co-founder Mallory and I used to be married. We started the business together, and we're both type A, like super hardworking and just super competitive. So every waking hour of the day, free time would be like, Born Primitive time, because I was active duty in the military. So anytime she had me, it was like a million questions about Born Primitive. We're on our laptops till midnight, and then it was always Born Primitive, all the time. And while that helped us obviously create a successful business that now employs all kinds of people, and we're having a good time with it. I think in hindsight, there could have been a little bit more thought given to balance and watering other aspects of your life. So it's one of those things that, now that I have perspective, I try to work more on that now. But
and that's what I like about what you said, Jason, is like, is there value in times of just doubling down hard on something and focus entirely on it? Of course. And I think that's like, especially as guys, like learning what your limit is in that fashion is important to pull back. But then what you said too is like, hey, it's not about just focusing on one thing all day and becoming like the absolute expert. And it's like identify, and we talked about this on an earlier podcast too, is like map out what your values are. And then throughout your day, you're just pivoting between those, full focus on what those values are. And then, as you said, like if you have a big moment in your life, have the ability to be flexible and kind of pivot off of what those are. But otherwise, it's like, what is important to you? And then if you find yourself doing that you've identified as important to you, put all your effort into it and put 100% focus, and then have the grace too. As you said, it's like, that shit's not easy. Our mind is a tricky thing. And like, when you really get conscious of how your thoughts roll out, even on a day-to-day basis, it's like, there needs to be some humility and grace there to realize like, hey, this is a process. I'm just trying to get a little better at staying focused in these moments that matter.